Hi everyone, welcome back. So let's resume where we were left. So I guess I need to start with this new series. So let's start from here. Courts finally revealed that the state increasingly persecuted individuals on moral grounds. So let's see what this series holds for us. So let's start with the first basis. This understanding of the influence of the past, the temporal nature of social relationship enables us to acknowledge the connection between economic deservingness and betrayal more accurately. We come to realize that the question of who deserved what after 1989 became a central concern for individuals. The moral belief that individuals deserve certain economic outcomes, whether through hard work or social support, also extended to their entitlement of specific social relationship. The stories of broken friendship highlights the desire of to purify one's social sphere from relationships that contradict their sense of deservingness. People yearn for recognitions of their economic choices and strive for others to perceive them as deserving as well. This moral claim on their involvement and the importance placed on it reveal the significance of economic justice in social ties. So basically what this passage is saying that this understanding of influence of the past, the temporal nature of the social relationships, enable us to acknowledge the economic connection between economic deserving, acknowledge the connection between the economic deservingness and the betrayal more accurately. So it says that the influence of past is is the main point we can just differentiate between the economic deservingness and betrayal. And what the other line says, we come to realize that the question who deserve what after 1989 become a central concern for individuals. The more beliefs that individuals deserve certain economic outcomes, whether through hard work or social support, also extend to their entitlement of specific social relationships. So it says that after 1989, we just came to know who deserve what, who have what kind of a social status they have. So who just get whose social economic status upwards and whose social economic status go downward. After that, it's separations between the people. Their economic status separate the people between the people. So the stories of a broken friendship highlights the desire to purify one's social sphere from relationship that contradict their sense of deservingness. So it says that during that time, there is the stories of broken friendships is highlighted more as we just see the lots of examples that the previously whatever the people have the bond between them it's completely broken. The true friends now lives like a strangers. People yearn this for the recognitions of their economic choices and strive for others to perceive them as deserving as well. This moral claim on their environment and the importance places on its reveal the significance of economic justice in social ties. So what it says that economic choices separates the relationship between the people. It's a status of deservingness, who deserve what and who's not. So it's also just reveals what it's also just the main point of or the main cause for the economic justice in social ties. So what the title of this whole passage is the stories the impact economic impact after 1989. So what we can take from here is that the temporal nature of social relationships enable us to acknowledge the connection between the economic deservingness and betrayal more accurately. And the moral belief that individuals deserve certain economic outcome, whether through the hard work or social support, also extend to their entitlement of a specific social relationship. And broken relationship is a contradict their sense of deservingness. People yearn for recognition of their economic choices and strive for others to perceive them as deserving as well. That's all for this passage. Let's moving toward the next one. These dynamics are to be sure not solely a result of marketizations after 1989. They have deep historical roots, molded in particular by the social conservatism of the late socialist society. As the historian Thomas Lindelberg and Michael Pullman have shown for the GDR and Zekolsky, respectively. The notion that someone was supposedly unwilling to work was politically propagated and instrumentalized by the Communist parties during the 1970s and 80s. Court files reveals that the state increasingly persecuted individuals on moral grounds using charges like socially deviated behavior, social behavior, labeling them as goal breaker or parasite to distance them from the healthy and productive socialist communities. So what this passage is basically saying that these dynamics, which is mentioned above, the social deservingness or economic deservingness, is not solely a result of marketization after 1989. That's not the solely responsible highlights for 1989. They have a deep historical roots, molded in particular by the social conservatism of the late socialist society. As a historian, Thomas Linderberg and Michael Pullman have shown for the GDR and Zekolsky, respectively, the notion that someone was supposedly unwilling to work was politically propagated and instrumentalized by the Communist Party during the 1970s and 80s. It says that the economic deservingness is not only sole responsibility responsible for the 19 or effect of the 1989, but it also about the unwillingness to work. Means someone is ready to work, someone is not, and those who are not ready to work, they're just that's why the society is separated. And they just said we it just injustice happens to them. So it's about this. So what's this more we can take from? The court files reveals that the state increasingly persecuted individuals on moral grounds using charges like socially deviant behavior, asocial behavior, labeling them as goal breaker or parasite to distance them from the healthy and productive socialist community. So if we look at the history, so there is lots of the things we can just consider as an evidence for the socials, for the claims of the people after 1989. So it's a court files, it reveals that there the court is separate the people who are socially deviated behavior, who are asocial behavior, who are just leveled by the society a goal breaker or parasites from the healthy and productive socialist community. That's why that social differentiation is created. So what we can just take from here is that there's no need to just put in any title, just we can summarize that this line, this whole passage, this whole lines are just most important lines. Why the above socials differentiation is created. So just moving toward the next para. In reality, this politics of scapegoating, accompanied by a sharp rise in the racist resentment and violence, was a clear indication that the Communist parties had lost ideological support and lacked a positive vision for the future. Nonetheless, this aggressive language subtly infiltrated interpersonal relationship. It shapes dynamic of trust and early echoes element of the moral language of market society, even serving as a framework to attribute economic setbacks during the 1990s to individual choices. So what this says that in reality, this politics of scapegoating, accompanied by the sharp rise of racist resentment and the violence, was a clear indication that the Communist Party had lost ideological support and lacked a positive vision for the future. At that time, there is the cases of racism and the violence. Because of that, the Communist Party lost their support and even they lacked the vision for the future. This aggressive language subtly infiltrated the interpersonal relationship. It shapes the dynamic of trust and early echoes element of the moral language of the market society, even serving as a framework to attribute economic setbacks during the 1990s to individual choices. So it says that because of that reasons, the interpersonal relationship is just what we can just say it's destroyed or it's affected, badly affected because of the trust issues. And there is the people don't have choice whom to just they just choose and whom don't. It's completely on their own individual choice. So what the title of this whole passage is, after 1990s, people rely on their own individual choices. Why? So, the first we can say a sharp rise in the resentment and the violence. Dynamic of trust and early echoes element of a moral language of market society that we can just take. And let's moving toward the next pieces. Today, in our world of polycrisis, a term popularized by the historian Adam Touzé to describe the simultaneity of multiple disruptive events and process, we can again observe numerous social reverberations of crisis dynamic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, all potentially affect interpersonal relationship and social cohesion in intricate ways. History enters the world of those who had read in academic books that it was over. Social branches are begin to crack in branch parts of the world that were lucky to be spared this phenomena in the past decades. So what it just says that today in our world of polycrisis, a term popularized by the historian Adam Touzé to describe this simultaneity of the multiple disruptive event and progress, we can again deserve numerous social revelations of crisis dynamic. It says that not just things just not the things limited to the 1990 or 1989. Still, we are in the same situations, but with the different needs. We are not directly, people can recognize the same things as of now, but the things are still in our today's world. And how it is? So let's see. The COVID-19 pandemic, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine all potentially affect interpersonal relationship and social cohesions. The interactive way, it says that we can see all this kind of differences during the COVID-19 energy crisis. The war in Ukraine is today's example of the same conditions. History enters the world of those who had read in academic books that it was over. Social branches are begin to crack in the parts of the world that were lucky to be spared this phenomena in the past decades. It says that it is history to only those who just read in academic books and they thought it's over now, but still that thing exists in today's world. So now we can just see all these things in those part of worlds which are luckily not the part that time. So what the title of this whole picture is how we are still in the same situation as of 1990s. So what we can take again observe a numerous social celebrations of the crisis dynamics. And how we can say that? The COVID-19 pandemic, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, all have potentially affect interpersonal relationship and the social cohesion in the interactive way. Social branches are beginning to the crack in the parts of the world that were lucky to be spared this phenomena in the past decades. That's all for that passage. Let's moving toward the next one. In the US, researchers have, for example, discovered that friendship ties, but not family ties, were weakened during the pandemic shutdowns. Drawing from the more anecdotal accounts, we can surmise that the experience of this health crisis has prompted individuals to contemplate their genuine priority in life. As a result, they begin to ask themselves who genuinely shared my values. While the specific may vary vary among individuals, the key point is that the social relationship often serve as sources of economic recognition. During a time of crisis, this very social relationship and consequently this source of recognition become precarious. So what this piece is trying to say that in the US, researchers have, for example, discovered that the friendship ties but not family ties were weakened during the pandemic shutdowns. It says that during a pandemic, there is examples of the shut broken of the friendship ties but not the family ties. Drawing from the more anecdotal account, we can summarize that the experience of this health crisis has prompted individuals to contemplate their genuine priorities in life. It says that during that health crisis, people can realize what their general priorities in their lives. As a result, they begin to ask themselves who genuinely shares my values. While the specific may vary among individuals, the key point is that the social relationship often serve as a source of economic recognitions. It says that our social relationship, how we are with societies, is also our shows the status of our economic recognitions. During the time of crisis, these very social relationship and consequently this resource of recognition become precarious. That this is our symbols, our social relationships, our identity during the crisis time. So what we can just say, the title of this passage is what we just can title. It's how pandemic realizes our genuine priority. And what we can take from here is that first, what we can take, social relationship often serve as a source of economic recognition. During the times of the crisis, these very social relationship and consequently the source of recognition become precarious. That's all for that passage. Let's moving toward the next one. Of course, there are variation in how individuals maintain their social network. Some, particularly the young, urban, highly educated, tend to cultivate many weak ties, lose social connection that contribute to their economic prospect and connect them to the different social crises. On the other hand, those living in the rural areas who are older and less adaptable in certain cultural contexts often have smaller networks that are predominantly based on strong ties, often also family based. For them, issue of loyalty and betrayal are prominent. But what holds true for all these groups is that during the time of crisis, the boundary between the private and economic realm may become a blurred. It becomes hard to deny that the social ties also serve as economic connection, providing individuals with emotional and cognitive support as well as information about opportunities whenever the domain of the private and economic interests and come into the conflict in social relation, people usually struggle to keep the world in moral order. As Michael Lamont put in her book, The Dignity of Working Men 2000. So basically, what this passage is saying that, of course, there is a variation of how individuals maintain their social network. That there is a variations. There is a different kind of relationship with different things which we can say which connect with our social networks. Some, particularly the young, the urban, highly educated, tend to cultivate many weak ties, lose social connection that contribute to their economic prospect, and connect them to different social cycles. So the people, it's an example about the young urban who are highly educated. They merely don't have that strong social connection that contribute to their economic prospect. But they have different social cycles. On the other hand, those living in the rural areas who are older and less adaptable in certain culture contexts often have smaller networks that are predominantly based on the strong ties, often also family based. So on the other side, it's an example of the old people who have a less adaptable to the current social changes or current changes in the world. That group have the limited social group, but the ties are strong, which are the family based only. Most of the ties that are family based only. For them, the issue of loyalty and betrayal are prominent. Why they don't have those the social ties outside their family ties? Because of they have the issue of loyalty and betrayal. But what holds true all of this group is that during the time of crisis, the boundary between the private and economic realm may become blurred. So during the time of crisis, all these groups just just limited their boundaries with private and economic realms. Means they prioritize their personal or the people who are important to them more than their cultural or their economical responsibilities. It's become hard to deny that social ties also serve as economic connection, providing individuals with emotional cognitive support as well as information about their opportunity. It says that it is impossible. We can't deny our social ties because we have workings, we have lots of economic supports. We have to prioritize. To just we have to just fulfill our those social responsibilities because we can't live without that. Whenever the domain of private and economic inspect and become into in a conflict in social relation, people usually struggle to keep the world in moral order. It says that during that time, it is hard for people to keep the to keep have the same moral values with the personals and the economical relationships. And that's also mentioned by Michael Lament in her book The Dignity of Working Men. So what we can take from what the title of this whole passage is the difference between social tie and economic tie. And what we can take from here is that a young, urban, highly educated, weak ties with to their economic prospect. Older and less adaptable, strong ties, family based. During the time of crisis, the boundary between the private and economic realm may become blurred. The domain of private and economic aspects and come into conflict in social relation. People usually struggle to keep the world in moral order. That's all for today's video. Hope you guys like it. See you with the last series. As of now, have a great day.